Right, so we're coming up to the allotment gardens now?
Yes, this is the organic allotment, and we're going to have a look at 4-course rotation.
Right.
Now, people might be wondering what that means, and it's basically a way of ensuring that the fertility in the soil is good and to reduce pests and diseases. And because if you grow the same crops in the same areas year after year, they become more susceptible to pests and the soil fertility runs down. In agriculture and even in gardening, people can crop on the same piece of land year after year, but to do that you have to pump the land full of nitrogen and different sorts of chemicals like that. With 4-course rotation, that gets rid of all that, because you're moving the crops around and you're putting in what we call a nitrogen fixing plant once every 4 years, and that puts fertility back in the soil.
So what one have we got here? What empire is going on
Well,
here?
okay, we've got tomatoes and squashes and things like that in that bed, in that area,
Okay.
and then we move on to different kind of roots and beets. You've got onions there and chard and beetroot and all that sort of family.
Okay.
And over here you've got the brassicas, people know as cabbages, and purple sprouting, and then kale and things like Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. That's your brassicas. And then we move on to the legumes. So we've got all the runner beans you can see here, and then you'd have things like broad beans. They've probably gone now because that kind of season's coming to the end. Peas and all that sort of things. And what they do is fix nitrogen into the soil, and nitrogen's great for plants. So,
so we've got 4 lots, and the key thing is basically to keep swapping them.
Keep moving them around. So every year you move these. Like next year, these will be in a separate plot, probably over there, and everything shifts around. It's a little game you play as a gardener.
And we're here in another wonderful looking garden.
Isn't it lovely?
With some beautiful flowers. These are not just for ornamentation, they're for pest control as well, I understand.
They are.
What sort of pests do we typically get? What type of different pests?
Well, there's a whole range of pests in a garden, and that can be a bit daunting for a first-time gardener, but there's ways of dealing with all of them, so it's not a problem, you just have to learn them. But you can get from things like rabbits, and even sheep if you live in the countryside, and foxes can be pests too, scratching up beds and stuff like that, right down to the smallest insects, and they're the kind of things that do probably most of the damage. The flowers that you see here, it's all about attracting natural predators, because okay, we've got lots of pests, but every single pest has a predator. It's just a way of life, it's just nature. So the pests will be eaten if you allow the natural predators to come in and dine on them, if you see what I mean.
So these lovely flowers here are to protect other plants, effectively?
Yes, most of the predators of pests are also interested in getting nectar from flowers. So they're also pollinators, and these wonderful flowers here are all attracting them in.
Why is there a pond here?
Okay, well, pond, I mean, basically what you're trying to do in organic gardening is trying to find as many ways as possible to bring in these predators, and another great way of doing it is to have a pond, and because it's home for frogs and things like hoverflies, and they're all great predators.
What do frogs do?
Frogs eat slugs.
Right, so I need a pond.
You need a pond. These are all shade-loving plants, and there's lots of shade-loving creatures that are also good predators. So we talked about frogs a minute ago. You've also got hedgehogs, so we've got a nice little hedgehog house here, which is great. They like slugs too, and then you've got log piles in the corner there and they're good for ground beetles, and they come out and eat slugs and other things. It's all happening.
Slugs,
everything in nature is like having a go at each other. That's what it's all about. And then there's the Lacewing Hotel. So those are all the natural methods. Right.
So we've got some more man-made alternatives here.
Yes, we have. Well, netting, this is a barrier. Basically, you've got barriers and traps if you're talking about man-made stuff, more or less. And this is a barrier, so you're physically stopping anything getting in. Moving on, I mean, this whole bed is all about slugs. This is the gardener's #1 enemy. And so in here we've got different ways of either stopping the slugs getting to your plants, or killing them.
So it's fairly self-explanatory, these ones.
Yeah, this is very difficult for a slug to collars, to get up, and you can see this one's quite interesting because this is a copper barrier, and slugs really don't like going over copper because it creates a little electric charge.
Right, and so what are these things that look like gun emplacements?
It's a bit D-Day landing, isn't it? This is a slug trap. So basically the slugs are attracted to what's inside them, which can be something like beer. If you've got some beer that's left over, who has leftover beer?
Give away my beer to the
yes,
slugs.
give it to the slugs. So you know, brings down total slug population. Can work.
More barriers here.
Yeah, more barriers here. This is a bran barrier, and slugs really don't like eating bran. And the same up there, we've got gravel, a kind of that's a product you can buy, and then you've got all sorts of other things that people use. It's like eggshells and fir cones, and
so there's natural ones there and man-made ones. So why are these sort of chemical-free pest defences actually important? I mean, why don't I just get a big Acme spray gun and go around and squirt pesticides?
One of the problems with pesticides is that it takes a lot of energy to produce them, so you've got all the issues with that. And when you can have like a natural alternative like this, which is growing in your garden easily, without anybody, you know, putting in extra input, then it's got to be better.
So there's carbon, that's one thing.
Carbon, that's one thing. Yeah. A more kind of on the ground problem is that when you use pesticides, you don't just kill the pests, you kill the predators as well, and that upsets the natural balance of the garden. And pests always recover more quickly than predators because they have a quicker life cycle.
So you're actually still have trouble for yourself in the long term.
Exactly.
So you need more pesticide and more pesticide.
And that's what happens. And the other thing is that pests become resistant to pesticide. So the pesticide companies have to keep on making new pesticides. And that means more energy, it means animal testing as well, because they all have to be tested on animals, each new pesticide. So it's a negative kind of impact on wildlife and animals generally.
Okay. So grim and not necessarily that effective.
Not that, exactly, and people are moving away from that. Even like chemical farmers are trying to think of, like we were talking about the nematode, more biological controls and stuff like that. So you know, pesticides kill the pest and the predator. Biological controls just kill the pest.
Okay.
So
great.
Yeah, it's got to be good. Yeah.
You might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by this point, thinking, well, they can do that somewhere like Garden Organic, but I can't do that at home. I'm afraid I'm taking away your excuse. We've got a little garden here, 4.5 metres by 6 metres, pretty normal, pretty average by British standards. And inside this little space, we've got composting over here, we've got a water butt, we've even got 4 crop rotation here in such a small space. So I'm afraid I've taken away your excuse. All we've got to do now is go and have some fun and get organic gardening.